A D N.
It's HeadphonesNeil!
What's up, guys, and welcome back to HeadphonesNeil Reviews. I'm your host, as always, HeadphonesNeil, bringing you my set of reviews and updates and stuff for this week. So it's going to be a relatively quick update, mostly just because one show finished that was kind of okay. Had a chance to watch a movie and then started a new show that I'm going to have to wait till it finishes just to see how it rounds itself out. And then we have a quick Doom update, and it's more of a progress update about what's coming up for next week. So that's why this episode is going to be a bit of a short one. I wasn't even sure I was going to put it out and do maybe an early episode for next week, mostly because it's the 4th of July holiday in the US, but then timing was going to be a little bit weird. So I already have something set up for that for next week. But for this episode, I did have a chance to watch the season finale, or the season 2 finale for The Walking Dead: Dead City. And overall, it seemed pretty fine. We have Maggie's son ending up with Dodama. Maggie and Negan pretty much reconcile, so it's one of those things where I think they were trying to mix it up a little bit as far as stuff that's going on. So we'll see if they even do a season 3, or if they tie it into maybe the next season of Daryl Dixon or what's going on there. But for a season that overall I liked, it was a kind of weird landing where it feels like it was more of stringing us along to say, hey, look at what's going on, so tune in for the next season where we'll have the resolution. So if they stick the resolution in season 3, for example, then it'll be fine, but they also end with the montage of, of like kind of summing up the season where it's like, well, everyone wants things to be how it used to be, but things are different now, so you're not going to get exactly the same thing as before. So it's one of those things where I think they didn't really resolve anything because they have everyone going back and forth on stuff. I mean, they did resolve the community that Maggie and Herschel were with, having now being able to access the methane facility, so their stuff is kind of resolved, but it's more of, well, they're attacking it or taking it over, but will they be able to hold it? So we'll see what they do with it, and if it's going to ultimately now be, well, Maggie is going to try and rescue her son, or is she going to think that he's now lost and not do anything about it and let him come back to her on his own? So with that being said, it's one of those things where it's a recent trend for me, it feels like, in TV shows where the seasons are good but the finales are not so great. So I don't know where they're going to go with this, and I'll have to reserve judgment to see if they resolve it in another season or something. But overall it was good, but the finale I'm kind of hesitant about that. It feels more like a setup to watch another season than an actual finale of, this is a dramatic finish. So I guess it's more like a mid-season finale than a actual season finale. So we'll see what they do with it if they do come out with The Walking Dead: Dead City Season 3. But otherwise, I finally had a chance to watch Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and overall I did enjoy it quite a bit. They made a lot of connecting tissue to all the prior Mission Impossible films, namely the earlier ones. Like the first one, they had a little not an Easter egg, but a tie-in with the date of the lady sister who got killed as a release date for the first Mission Impossible movie. And then things like what the rabbit's foot was, tie-ins to Tom Cruise's or Ethan Hunt's wife in the movie, what Hunt has been stealing and dealing with all the movies that he's been resolving the symptoms but not the disease. So tying it all together here, that it was all coming together to put together elements to create the entity, which overall it felt like a Rise of the Machine style show where we have the entity taking over to basically the machine taking over to influence world events. So it gave me a very much of a Terminator Rise of the Machines feel. And then something that made me laugh that made it maybe shouldn't have was the submarine scene when Ethan has to get the device out of the locker. That whole sequence when he's trying to escape felt like submarine insanity, like along the lines of virtual insanity. So it was a very serious scene, and overall it was very, very well done for how he's going to get out. But it reminded me a lot of virtual insanity. But the thing that was most unbelievable out of all of it was when he ends up having to take off the suit and then swim to the surface without getting crushed. So to me, it's like, okay, well then what was the point of the suit to begin with, aside, I mean, I guess for the oxygen to get down there. But then that's really all he needed the suit for, I guess, because it didn't really protect him from the crushing influence of the ocean. So it's kind of weird. It just bothered me that, well, he just needed to get down there and then he could have moved around without the suit and then escaped and gone to the surface or whatever. So kind of weird there. And then as a bit of random cameo, I forget the actor's name, but the guy who plays Stasiak in the Fast and the Furious films played the CIA director's right-hand man. And I just kept thinking the whole time about when he's going to call his real family. And we have a cameo appearance by the Fast and the Furious crew. So add in Vin Diesel and Roman and all those guys and have them show up in their cars to do stuff around the world, to the point where I almost wonder if the next Fast and the Furious film is going to be related to something like this for the Entity, or a job for... Well, I mean, they technically have done jobs for Mr. Nobody, who I guess could be working for the CIA or something. But it's one of those things where it just made me think that he's going to call Dom or The Rock or someone at some point, or something along those lines, and have them help pull off the heist or be the bad guys or something, or, you know, help out to get the device where it needs to go or something like that, and have a big old tie-in action sequence or something like that. And then the interesting cameo is we have so in the President's Inner Circle, we have that African-American general guy out of the cabinet, and I was trying not to like stereotype him into thinking he was the same guy from Top Gun Maverick. So after the film, I did go back and check, and actually it was the same actor who introduces the new Top Gun class to Maverick. So I was thinking that, well, of course he's gonna believe Maverick is gonna do what he's gonna do. But then of course we have a plane scene of Tom Cruise having an intense plane sequence, and of course not necessarily it doesn't have to be a F-16 fighter or whatever the planes are in the Top Gun movies, but we have a old biplane that he has to fly, and he does weird and insane stunts through. So a little bit of Top Gun-esque style plane sequence there. So I just thought, well, at some point they're going to merge the films and just have Top Gun, Mission Impossible, or Top Impossible, or something like that style movie, and take it from there. So with that being said, overall it was a good movie, but they did close it out to the point where they could potentially keep going with the movie. So while in this case we have the Final Reckoning, they could go with, you know, Ultimate Reckoning, Next Reckoning, and keep making more and more Mission Impossible movies. And even if Tom Cruise doesn't want to do all those stunts anymore, they could potentially move him into the director position of the CIA, and everyone else stays in the field, or they become his executive assistants or whatever to do what they need to do for each of the various departments, and be the leaders at the CIA and take it from there. And then of course, to round out the connections, I like that they had the guy from the Vault from the first movie be a intense character in this one, and tie out his storyline, that even though he got moved out of that facility, or fired from the facility and moved to a remote, out of the way, no place in the middle of nowhere, he was able to ultimately meet his wife, who he's in love with, and he actually now has a happy, peaceful life, because otherwise he would have still been working at the CIA and doing that job. So overall, a good bit of connections there. So on one hand, it feels like they're done with the Mission Impossible movies, but on the other hand, it feels like they're not necessarily retroactively or retconning anything, but it feels like they're tying out all of these prior Mission Impossible movies to close out the Tom Cruise era and move into a new era with, the next generation, new cast, or something along those lines, so that they can move on with the movies, or at least close out what they're doing and move on with a new story arc, new characters, or somebody else in that primary role. With that being said, we had a new TV show start up this week called Ironheart for the Marvel television universe, as a connection to Ironheart's character, I guess, from Wakanda Forever. I'm holding on doing a full review of the episodes until the season is done. Mostly because this first set of episodes are the reintroduction to her character, what she's up to. She gets kicked out of school, she gets in with the wrong crowd, and wants to basically finish out her suit and prove herself. And so I'm not sure if at the moment there's only 6 episodes or how that's all gonna work, but I guess we're gonna see how it ties itself together, who the main villain is gonna be. And for me, I didn't do like a deep dive into things, but I was kind of going down the rabbit hole of, well, what's the show going to be about? What's the end result of it? And at some point I saw that potentially, what's his name? Sacha Baron Cohen is going to play Mephisto. So potentially he's the main bad guy in this. Like, he plays like the devil, demon, maybe a evil magician kind of character. So I'm wondering if that's going to be the ultimate end game of this show, that he's the main villain for the conclusion of Phase 5 MCU, which I was reading somewhere, which doesn't seem quite right to end it here, unless that's going to be the setup for Phase 6 of the multiverse, or the connecting tissue as far as mutants and things like that go in Phase 6 or something like that. So that's kind of why I'm holding out my review for what I think of the show, to see how they round it out. Also depending on how many episodes they have and all of that stuff, which I think it's going to be only 6, but in case there's more or anything like that, just to see what they do with it and how they set up, or how they conclude Phase 5 potentially and move into Phase 6 or whatever, and round out, and what they do with the show and how they tie it into the whole MCU. So with that being said, as far as the Doom gameplay update goes, just a regular set of gameplays this week. There's nothing major to really talk about. It was, it's one of those things where it's kind of like last week, where I like the title cards per level. I like the cutscenes. We get regular progress updates about why your character is in each particular scene and why they're on that level, what you need to do. Ultimately, you're trying to get the Heart of Argent back, and they're setting up for the fight against Prince, as whatever the prince's name is. So going through hell, fighting all the mechs or using the mechs to fight the Titans, and then levels, big beautiful levels that are kind of like the levels from Eve Eternity and things like that. So it does feel like Doom the Dark Ages is playing homage to all the games that came before it in the main Doom franchise, along with the taking inspiration from various other mods and things like that to make these level designs. So It is a very nice, beautiful game, so definitely worth playing. Overall, I'm having fun with it. The levels are a varying length, so some are shorter than longer than others. So definitely keeps it interesting when they mix it up as far as what you need to do, where you need to go, all the different missions and the different characters and all of that stuff. So for now, the gameplay playlist link will be in the show notes. And I'll have the final review next week once the gameplay is done, since I am approaching the finale of the game. But that is all for this particular episode. Thanks for tuning in. All the social media links are linked on the website at HeadphonesNeil.reviews. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/PatelN01 for all the gameplay videos. Audio versions of the podcast there if you prefer to listen there. I'm prepping the next gameplay as well of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, so we'll see how that goes. Initial take is that the fonts and stuff seem kind of small, so I'm trying to see if I can adjust the size of the UI, but overall, initially, it does seem like it's going to be an interesting game, and it does kind of start much in the same way as Jedi Fallen Order, so I'm curious to see where the story goes from there and how the gameplay goes. But if you are a member and a subscriber to the YouTube channel, then you get things like gameplay videos early, and that's the full HD version of the game along with a preview of that level. So definite benefit to being a subscriber on the YouTube channel there. So youtube.com/PatelN01. But that is all for this particular episode. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.